It was a fascist military dictatorship with no freedom and such. There were soldiers out on the street with guns.
Hey guys, and welcome to this neighborhood special. Out of the 467 neighborhoods we have explored, already 84. But I could have never done this without a few of my regular guests. And one of my regular guests is David Mason, who appeared in Insadong, Susongdong and Uidong. Trust me when I say I have never met anyone so passionate about Korean mountains, Buddhism and shamanism. So many of my viewers were curious about David. So today we will meet David and talk about why he fell in love with Korea and why he has stayed here for over 35 years. Let's do this. Let's start at the beginning. Why and when did you come to Korea?
I first arrived on July 4th, 1982. I was teaching English in Taiwan for 6 months. I was just wandering backpacker. I was trying to get into China ever since November 1981. I flew to Hong Kong, but China was still closed. There was just rumors they were going to open. So I was going around China, countries nearby, traveling Japan, Philippines, Hong Kong, and then Taiwan. I was trying to learn some Chinese and I was teaching English to survive. I was totally out of money. And then somebody recommended, Mason, with your kind of interests and all, you should go visit South Korea. And I'd never even heard of Korea, really. I didn't know anything about it. I'd just heard a rumor of a Korean war. Why should I go there? And he said, well, number one, they got a really interesting, older, spiritual culture in the mountains. And a guy like you would enjoy this. And number two, you'll make twice as much money teaching English per hour because hardly anybody's there. And number three, he said, Korean girls are prettier than Chinese girls. I had to find out if they're true or false. I'm a scholar, so I need to know the truth of this. So I came up here, and my first impression was that this is not a part of Japan, and it's not a part of China. People were saying back then frequently in the 70s, but this is an independent country. This is a third country in between them. It's got its own flavor, its own style, but nobody knows anything about this. And I discovered that there are hardly any books in English. And then I found that all three of those things that guy recommended, all three were true.
Yeah.
And so I just stayed here for a whole year, and it was fascinating, and nobody knew anything about it. And then China opened the door, so I left. And I went and spent 6 weeks backpacking in China, and that was my life's goal. And then I was very satisfied, and I went back to America. But then I kept thinking about Korea, I kept remembering. It was especially Korea. Wow, and I kept looking at my old photos and saying, there's amazing stuff, and nobody knows about this. And I didn't know what to do with my life. And then suddenly I just jumped on a plane and came back to Korea, January 86. And I was teaching English again in Seoul and not sure why I was here, but just wanted to know more and explore more. And then suddenly there was an ad in the newspaper for the ancient capital Gyeongju. We need an English teacher. And I said, that's my job. Oh my God, that's why I just called him up and said, that's my job, give it to me. And then I spent 2 years living in Gyeongju. There was only 3 foreigners in the whole town. But then with all my free time, just exploring and learning all this amazing stuff about Gyeongju and the ancient history of Korea and the great Buddhist artworks. And I really just got hooked. And then I started writing books because there wasn't things in English. By 96, I wrote the Lonely Planet book for Korea. Then by 99, I wrote a book about the mountain spirits. Right at the center of Confucianism, Buddhism, Taoism, and shamanism, and the Korean national identity, all wrapped up in the mountain spirit.
What made you interested in that in the first place?
The combination of religions in it, that there's 5 different spiritual traditions intersecting in that one figure. Also that it represents the mountains. And ever since a teenager, I loved mountains. I discovered the Rocky Mountains in America. I felt it's truly the spiritual place. I agree with John Muir, the great American sage who started the national park system. I agree with him. This is the true cathedral. The real Church of God is out there in these deep mountains. And then I come to Korea and I find this mountain spirit figure, which embodies all 5 of those traditions I mentioned, plus it represents the mountains, the very beautiful craggy mountains of Korea.
But is it not something you can find in America, in the States?
Not at all. Not in the world.
Not in the world?
Not anywhere in the world. There's nothing really like this.
So it's unique.
The Korean mountain spirit. There's mountain worship all over the world, but there's no figure that is so highly evolved, sophisticated, and complex as the Korean mountain spirit.
So what's your favorite mountain?
That's impossible. But the most impressive, grand, holy, sacred mountain has got to be Jirisan, the first national park. There are 5 or 6 major religions you can find inhabiting that mountain.
Yes.
All of them calling it a holy mountain. You will never find this anywhere else in the world. And it is so fantastic. I have visited 100 sacred sites on Jirisan.
The regular tourists, they go up to the mountains, not knowing what the meaning is of these peaks, the sacred sites. Like, where do you learn about this?
Not knowing what it means.
Yeah.
Jirisan means the exotic wisdom mountains. People don't know this anymore.
But where is this information?
It's just sound on my website.
Okay, but where did you learn it?
That's where you find it. Well, you got to dig in.
Should we highlight this more?
Definitely. They should translate the names to English. They all mean something. Go visit Jirisan. That means nothing to people. It's just sounds, letters. But go visit the exotic wisdom mountain, the mountain of the Bodhisattva of wisdom. Now, see, that's interesting. That makes you want to go there.
1982, that is over 40 years now.
My God.
David, 40 years.
Yeah, it's so long, 42 years ago. It was such a different country. People like to ask me what has changed, and I answer, what hasn't changed? It was a fascist military dictatorship with no freedom and such. There were soldiers out on the street with guns. There were tanks parked in front of major universities. There was real oppression. When I started teaching English here, they told me, you never talk about freedom, liberty, democracy. Those are not English vocabulary words.
Really?
You do not mention that in class. Human rights is not something you say. We had the democracy revolution in the 80s. I was in it, watching it, and quietly advising my college students, oh yes, democracy's better. Keep going, keep working, but stay peaceful, kids. Stay and don't get killed. And we got democracy peacefully in 1987. It was so dramatic. By 1988, we hosted the Olympics, and it was incredible. Suddenly, Korea was open to the world, and the world came to Korea, and everything changed, and it developed so wonderfully. And then we got the internet, and the world's fastest internet, and Wi-Fi, and all this technology stuff blossomed. I know there's many social problems and such in Korea, but it's become really such a good country. And Seoul was a hellhole 40 years ago, let me tell you. You wouldn't want to be here. The pollution, the dust, the air, the water, the traffic jams on every street. It was pretty horrible. So I escaped to the mountains. 20 years, I just lived out in the mountains.
And an easier question, I guess. Your favorite food after 40 years? Having tried pretty much everything, I assume.
Yeah, well, yeah, okay, even dog meat, I tried it. All right, but my favorite meal is the sanche jongshik, wild mountain vegetables. You can't get it much in the city. There's only a few restaurants, generally out in the mountains. Sanche jongshik, they fill the table with mountain vegetables, roots, stems, leaves, mushrooms, prepared in all different ways. And a variety and many things you've never seen before. But the old grandmothers, they know how to find them from the mountain forest. They know how to prepare them, cook them, pickle them, or roast them, or fry them, or soak them, or whatever. And you have a few shots with it of like ginseng liquor, soju vodka that has a ginseng root soaked in it for a couple of years. A few shots of that with your meal. It is paradise. We're here in the Independence Park, you notice?
Yeah, I think people noticed.
The very fierce Korean spirit of independence is all around us here, and that's an important part of Korea and something to admire about them. They kept their independence from China, then got taken over by Japan, but they got independence back and built a great Republic of Korea here as a very proud, independent, modern country. And now I'm just being full-time as a tour guide, and I enjoy it. It's fun. I love telling people about Korean Buddhism, shamanism, Confucianism, Korean history, and the modern Korea, all the struggles and dramatic stories of how it got to be this way, the Korean War, or just the ancient traditions.
Anyway, I hope you guys got to know a little bit more about David. Thank you for watching.
All right.
Adieu.
Bye-bye.